66. Out of service. Not long, however, after Zarathustra had freed himself from the magician, he again saw a person sitting beside the path which he followed, namely a tall, black man with a haggard, pale countenance. This man grieved him exceedingly. "Alas," said he to his heart, "there sitteth disguised affliction. Methinketh he is of the type of the priests. What do they want in my domain? What? Hardly have I escaped from that magician, and must another necromancer again run across my path? Some sorcerer with laying on of hands, some sombre wonder-worker by the grace of God, some anointed world maligner, whom may the devil take. But the devil is never at the place which would be his right place. He always cometh too late, that cursed dwarf and clubfoot."
The next man that Zarathustra encounters looks like a priest. He is described as a black man, but this means that he is dressed in black, not that he is dark-skinned. Zarathustra is annoyed because, just like the magician he just left behind, the priest is also someone who seeks the truth in a place outside of this world.
Thus cursed Zarathustra impatiently in his heart, and considered how, with averted look, he might slip past the black man. But behold, it came about otherwise, for at the same moment had the sitting one already perceived him, and not unlike one whom an unexpected happiness overtaketh, he sprang to his feet, and went straight toward Zarathustra. "Whoever thou art, thou traveller," said he, "help a strayed one, a seeker, an old man, who may here easily come to grief. The world here is strange to me and remote. Wild beasts also did I hear howling, and he who could have given me protection, he is himself no more. I was seeking the pious man, a saint and an anchorite, who, alone in his forest, had not yet heard of what all the world knoweth at present."
This man is lost. He came seeking the old man that we met in the prologue, the first man that Zarathustra encountered when he descended the mountain for the first time. That man was a hermit who ran away from human society to the forest because he wanted to be alone with God and worship him. Back then, Zarathustra remarked that this man, because he has been detached from society, hadn't heard that his God is dead. Well, now it turns out that this priestly character came looking for him because he was looking for someone who was thus detached, someone who didn't hear the news.
"What doth all the world know at present?" asked Zarathustra. "Perhaps that the old God no longer liveth, in whom all the world once believed?" "Thou sayest it," answered the old man sorrowfully, "and I served that old God until his last hour. Now, however, am I out of service, without master, and yet not free. Likewise am I no longer merry even for an hour, except it be in recollections. Therefore did I ascend into these mountains, that I might finally have a festival for myself once more, as becometh an old pope and church father, for know it that I am the last pope, a festival of pious recollections and divine services."
The man is not just a regular priest, he is none other than the Pope. But the death of God, it turns out, has now become apparent to all humans. Thus, they all left the church, and the Pope found himself on the unemployment line. But he is an old man who cannot change his ways, so he came seeking the one person who still thinks God is alive, so he can serve as his Pope, and they can both go on worshipping God together.
Now, however, is he himself dead, the most pious of men, the saint in the forest, who praised his God constantly with singing and mumbling. He himself found I no longer when I found his cot, but 2 wolves found I therein, which howled on account of his death, for all animals loved him. Then did I haste away. Had I thus come in vain into these forests and mountains? Then did my heart determine that I should seek another, the most pious of all those who believe not in God. My heart determined that I should seek Zarathustra.
Alas, the man of the forest had passed away by now. The last pope was left completely alone, and his heart told him that he should instead seek Zarathustra, who, among the godless men, is the most pious. Apparently, His happiness to meet this stranger came from the hope that he could tell him where he could find Zarathustra.
Thus spake the hoary man, and gazed with keen eyes at him who stood before him. Zarathustra, however, seized the hand of the old Pope, and regarded it a long while with admiration. "Lo, thou venerable one," said he then, "what a fine and long hand! That is the hand of one who hath ever dispensed blessings. Now, however, doth it hold fast him whom thou seekest, me, Zarathustra. It is I, the ungodly Zarathustra, who saith, Who is ungodlier than I, that I may enjoy his teaching?"
Zarathustra introduces himself, and confirms that he is indeed without God, and would like to find someone even ungodlier than himself, so he could learn from him how to do it better.
Thus spake Zarathustra, and penetrated with his glances the thoughts and arrear thoughts of the old Pope. At last the latter began, "He who most loved and possessed him hath now also lost him most. Though I myself am surely the most godless of us at present, but who could rejoice at that?"
The Pope reacts by asserting that he, surely, is now the more godless between them, since he lost the god that he had. That's not exactly what Zarathustra was looking for, though. There's a difference between being godless and being ungodly. Anyway, he takes no pride in it, and doesn't presume to be able to teach him anything.
"Thou servedst him to the last?" asked Zarathustra thoughtfully, after a deep silence. "Thou knowest how he died? Is it true what they say, that sympathy choked him? That he saw how man hung on the cross and could not endure it? That his love to man became his hell and at last his death?"
Is it true what they say, that sympathy choked him? Asks Zarathustra. They? Who's they? It was Zarathustra who said it, in The Pitiful. Compassionate feeling like pity, in Zarathustra's view, are so destructive to one's ego, so stifling to the individuality, that they eventually consume you whole and kill you. Even God could not escape it, and died of his pity for the wretched state that the humankind he created is in. But this was only a conjecture. Here, Zarathustra meets someone who can be said to be closest of all to God, so he tries to get information about how he really died.
The old Pope, however, did not answer, but looked aside timidly with a painful and gloomy expression. "Let him go," said Zarathustra, after prolonged meditation, still looking the old man straight in the eye. "Let him go. He is gone. And though it honoureth thee that thou speakest only in praise of this dead one, yet thou knowest, as well as I, who he was, and that he went curious ways."
The Pope doesn't answer the provocative question. Zarathustra then tries another way, and tells him that he should let his God go, because he knows who he really was. He wasn't that good as he was portrayed.
"To speak before 3 eyes," said the old Pope cheerfully. "He was blind of 1 eye. In divine matters I am more enlightened than Zarathustra himself, and may well be so. My love served him long years, my will followed all his will. A good servant, however, knoweth everything, and many a thing even which a master hideth from himself. He was a hidden God, full of secrecy. Verily he did not come by his Son otherwise than by secret ways. At the door of his faith standeth adultery."
The Pope opens up, and admits that God wasn't, in fact, all that good. He points out the contradiction. The same God who said, "Thou shalt not commit adultery," behaved like an adulterer, in that he never came to his faithful straight, but only through back doors. Even his own Son, Jesus, didn't know exactly what he wanted from him.
"Whoever extolleth him as a God of love doth not think highly enough of love itself. Did not that God want also to be judge? But the loving one loveth irrespective of reward and requital. When he was young, that God out of the Orient, then was he harsh and revengeful, and built himself a hell for the delight of his favourites. At last, however, he became old and soft and mellow and pitiful, more like a grandfather than a father, but most like a tottering old grandmother. There did he sit shriveled in his chimney corner, fretting on account of his weak legs, world-weary, will-weary, and one day he suffocated of his all too great pity.
Another contradiction. The God of the Old Testament was a judging God, but the New Testament made him the God of love. You can't be both judgmental and loving, since love is supposed to transcend judgment. After that, the Pope pretty much affirms Zarathustra's theory, and says that God started out as strong and vengeful, but then became pitiful, and the ever-worsening condition of humanity eventually made him choke to death on his pity.
"Thou old Pope," said here Zarathustra, interposing, "hast thou seen that with thine eyes? It could well have happened in that way and also otherwise. When gods die, they always die many kinds of death. Well, at all events, one way or other, he is gone. He was counter to the taste of mine ears and eyes. Worse than that, I should not like to say against him."
Zarathustra counters that it doesn't really matter how he died. The important thing is that he is finally dead. This god offended his taste, meaning he was an ugly god. He shall now explain why.
"I love everything that looketh bright, and speaketh honestly. But he, thou knowest it, forsooth, thou old priest, there was something of thy type in him, the priest type. He was equivocal. He was also indistinct. How he raged at us, this wrath-snorter, because we understood him badly. But why did he not speak more clearly? And if the fault lay in our ears, why did he give us ears that heard him badly? If there was dirt in our ears, well, who put it in them?"
What offended his taste was that his god was dishonest. His dishonesty made his believers fail to understand what he wanted from them, and then, instead of fixing it, he blamed them for not understanding. This was unjust and ugly.
Too much miscarried with him, this potter who had not learned thoroughly. That he took revenge on his pots and creations, however, because they turned out badly, that was a sin against good taste. There is also good taste in piety. This, at last, said, away with such a god. Better to have no god, better to set up destiny on one's own account, better to be a fool, better to be God oneself.
The creator did a bad job at creating, and then blamed his creations for failing to follow his words properly. But he did manage to teach them piety, and it is this piety that eventually made them turn against him. Humanity's sense of truth and justice could no longer accept this dishonest and unjust God, so they stopped believing in him. This is a recurring argument in Nietzsche's work, that it was the morality that Christianity taught humanity that eventually made humanity turn against the Christian God.
"What do I hear?" said then the old Pope with intent ears. "O Zarathustra, thou art more pious than thou believest, with such an unbelief. Some god in thee hath converted thee to thine ungodliness. Is it not thy piety itself which no longer letteth thee believe in a god? And thine over-great honesty will yet lead thee even beyond good and evil. Behold, what hath been reserved for thee. Thou hast eyes and hands and mouth, which have been predestined for blessing from eternity. One doth not bless with the hand alone. Nigh unto thee, though thou professest to be the ungodliest one, I feel a hale and holy odour of long benedictions. I feel glad and grieved thereby."
The Pope realizes that Zarathustra's ungodliness did not transpire due to some immorality and corruption in his nature, as he thought, but out of piety. He shares the same values as Christians, at least some of the same values, and it was these values that led him to apostasy. Thus, he feels an affinity to him.
"Let me be thy guest, O Zarathustra, for a single night. Nowhere on earth shall I now feel better than with thee." "Amen. So shall it be," said Zarathustra with great astonishment. "Up thither leadeth the way, there lieth the cave of Zarathustra. Gladly, forsooth, would I conduct thee thither myself, thou venerable one, for I love all pious men. But now a cry of distress calleth me hastily away from thee."
Now that they found common ground, the Pope asks to stay with him for a while, and Zarathustra welcomes him. The cave gets yet another dweller. Another higher man who escaped society to find something better.
In my domain shall no one come to grief. My cave is a good haven, and best of all would I like to put every sorrowful one again on firm land and firm legs. Who, however, could take thy melancholy off thy shoulders? For that I am too weak. Long verily should we have to wait until someone reawoke thy God for thee. For that old God liveth no more. He is indeed dead. Thus spake Zarathustra.
Zarathustra doubts that he can help the last pope. It seems the only thing that can revive him is if he finds God in his heart again, but he doesn't think it is possible. History, of course, has proven Nietzsche wrong on this, as God is still alive and kicking in our society, and will continue to be so for the foreseeable future. But we shall accept that in the story we are reading, Zarathustra's prediction has been proven true, and all humans lost their faith in God. We are in a godless world, and we need to find suitable values that can help all those people in Zarathustra's cave. For now, however, Zarathustra doesn't think about that. He is still looking for the man who emitted the cry of distress.